All right, let's talk about something that every single woodworker runs into. You've got your project plans, you're standing there in the lumberyard, and you're thinking, how in the world do I figure out how much wood to actually buy? Well, if that's you, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to crack the code on that exact problem.
I mean, it's the classic dilemma, isn't it? You've got the vision, you've got the design, you know all the dimensions, but turning that beautiful plan into a simple shopping list, that can feel like a completely different skill. But don't worry, we're going to solve that right now by learning to speak the language of the lumberyard.
And that language, the key to all of this, is a unit called the board foot. It's the standard for buying and selling almost all hardwoods, and trust me, once you get this, everything else just kind of clicks into place. So let's dive right in.
So first things first, a board foot is not about length, it's about volume. The easiest way to picture it is a block of wood that's exactly 1 inch thick, 1 foot wide, and 1 foot long. That specific amount of wood, 144 cubic inches, that is our magic number.
Now, the formula to find it looks super simple. You just multiply the thickness of the board by its width, by its length, and then you divide that whole thing by our magic number, 144. Now, there is one golden rule here, and you can't forget it. All of your measurements have to be in inches for this to work. Seriously, no exceptions.
Okay, that's enough theory. Let's actually put this formula to the test and see how it works with a really straightforward example.
It really is just a simple 3-step dance. Step 1, measure your piece, thickness, width, and length, all in inches. Step 2, multiply those 3 numbers together. And step 3, take that grand total and divide it by 144. And that's it. You've just calculated board feet.
So let's take a look at this board. It's 1 inch thick, 6 inches wide, and 30 inches long. We multiply 1 times 6 times 30. That gives us 180. Then we just divide 180 by 144. And boom, there's our answer. 1.25 board feet. See? Not so scary.
Of course, in the real world, things are rarely that clean. Lumberyards have their own lingo, their own shorthand. So let's get you ready for the kind of measurements you're actually going to see when you're out shopping.
So, first up, the most common little hurdle you're going to run into. What happens when your measurements aren't nice, clean, whole numbers? You know, what do you do with fractions?
Well, the solution is actually super simple. Just turn those fractions into decimals. So if a board is 3.5 inches wide, that just becomes 3.5. If it's 1.5 inches thick, that's 1.5. You just multiply them like normal. 16 times 3.5 times 1.5 gives you 84. You divide that by 144, and you're good to go.
Okay, next, curveball. It's pretty common to see lumber sold with the length measured in feet. So what do you do when your length is in feet, but your other 2 measurements are still in inches?
You just got to remember that golden rule, right? Everything has to be in inches before you use the formula. So your very first step is to convert the feet. If a board is 4 feet long, you just multiply 4 by 12, which gives you 48 inches. Then, and only then, you can plug that 48 into the formula and do the math like we've been doing.
All right, now for some real insider lingo. You're probably not going to hear someone at the lumberyard ask for 1.25 inch thick stock. No way. You're going to hear this, 5/4 stock. It sounds a little weird, but it's really just another fraction in disguise.
And honestly, it's way simpler than it sounds. 5/4 just literally means 5/4 of an inch. You can do the math in your head. 5 divided by 4 is 1.25, or 1.25 inches. And that same logic applies to all the other terms you'll hear. 4/4 or 4/4 is 1 inch. 8/4 or 8/4 is 2 inches. It's just the system they use, and you'll get the hang of it fast.
So, now we know how to calculate the volume of pretty much any board they can throw at us. Let's get to the part that really matters, connecting that number to how much your project is actually going to cost you.
Believe it or not, this is the easiest calculation of the entire process. Once you know your total board feet, you just multiply that number by the price per board foot for whatever wood you're buying. That's it.
Let's say you're splurging on some gorgeous black walnut, and it costs $8.50 per board foot. And let's say your project needs a total of 3.25 board feet. You just multiply those 2 numbers together, and you've got your material cost, $27.63.
And this is why all this math really matters. For a bigger project, maybe one that needs 11 board feet of a pricier wood, say at $17.88 a board foot, well, that total suddenly jumps up to almost $200. Calculating it accurately beforehand means you buy exactly what you need and you don't end up breaking the bank.
Okay,
Before we wrap this up, I want to share a little pro tip with you. There's actually a second formula you can use. It's a bit of a shortcut, especially for those times when you're dealing with lengths that are already measured in feet.
So here are the two formulas side by side. The one on the left is our old friend. When your length is in inches, you divide by 144. But if your length is already in feet, you can use a different trick. Keep the thickness and width in inches, use the length in feet, but instead of dividing by 144, you just divide by 12. It's a much faster way to get the exact same answer.
Okay, time to bring it all home with one final challenge. Imagine you're building a project that requires 3 identical pieces of this incredible Purple Heart wood. The specs are 5/4 strock for the thickness, 6 1/4 inches for the width, and 21 inches for the length.
So you now have every single tool you need to figure this out. You know what to do with the 5/4 thickness, you know how to handle that fractional width, and you know how to calculate the total board feet for all 3 pieces put together. So the only real question left is, if this wood cost, let's say, $15 a board foot, how much would you be spending at the checkout? The power to answer that is officially in your hands.